Hi, and welcome back to the HSP Connection podcast with me, Philippa Robinson. This is where we share our stories, insights, and strategies to help fellow highly sensitive people navigate their own path to live a fulfilling and meaningful life. We're on a mission to reclaim the word sensitive, dispel even the myth of weakness, and help the world see the strength in sensitivity. So today, it's just me. Robbie and I have been having a few scheduling issues, and I decided I haven't done a solo podcast episode at all in this podcast. I did quite a few in my previous podcast, so in fact I did quite a lot. So I decided to jump in and do a solo episode today. So those of you who are tuning in to see me and Robbie, don't worry, absolutely normal service will be resumed. Next week we've got a guest episode, and then the week after it will just be me and Robbie, as you probably have come to expect. And today, so it's me. It's perhaps going to be a shorter episode, although famous last words. And really today, I just wanted to talk about something that has been on my mind quite a lot lately. And really, I suppose the title of this is going to be something along the line of taking action. And this is very much not about just do stuff, do. That is really not what this is about. It is more about, it came up. Let me explain to you where it came from. So anybody who's been here for a while and knows anything of my story, I had a massive breakdown in 2016, really hit in 2017, when I lost a lot of the sight in my right eye, most of which I did get back. But I didn't know I was going to get it back. And actually, it really wasn't clear whether I was going to get it back. And a really big unravelling started. And to cut a long story short, I ended up in therapy for 3 years, which was hard and wonderful. And at the end of those 3 years, I found myself thinking, okay, I've worked through a lot of that stuff, a lot of the childhood stuff. Who am I now, and what am I all about? Because I was no longer weighed down by all that childhood stuff. So, that started a real other journey for me. And that's where I read a lot of books, self-help books, lots of other people's stories who'd been through vaguely similar things to me. I listened to lots of podcasts. That's where I sort of, my love for podcasts started. I read lots of blogs, I just consumed anything I could find that seemed to be talking to me at the time. In particular, that's when I discovered Brené Brown and all her books. It all kind of came around that time. And I did a lot of reading, a lot of, as I've said, listening to podcasts, all those things. And that was wonderful. That gave me a lot of tips, a lot of strategies, a lot of things to think about, to feel into, what felt right, what felt good. And that was wonderful. But what I also needed to do was take some action. And that is where the idea for this episode came from. That because we can do a lot, and as I say this, I'm pretty sure quite a lot of you are going to be going, oh, yeah, okay. We can do all the learning. I mean, as HSPs, we love learning new stuff. Most of it, it's a real trait. So if you don't love learning new stuff, that doesn't mean you're not an HSP, but it is quite a common part of the trait for a lot of us that we love learning. We're lifelong learners. We love new information. We love putting, and also the high sensation seeker in me really loves new stuff as well. So, and we can learn. We can learn new stuff. We can learn new ideas. We can learn new theories. But it comes to a point where we have to start putting them into practice. And that's where the taking action idea came from. And I thinking back to when I started my business 3.5 years ago now, I would consume as many, certainly a lot of the free stuff at the beginning, free webinars, free courses, free challenges, and then I did some paid for things as well, to get more information and get more ideas. But what has been the most transformative for me is putting some of that into action. And that is both in my business and in my, my home life, anything that's not business. So really taking action is a crucial piece of the work. So what do I mean by that? So, we talk about boundaries a lot, don't we? And certainly in the world that I sort of, where healing and trauma work meets coaching, it's kind of where I sit. There is a lot of talk about boundaries, and I tend to think of boundaries as I've talked about on one of the previous episodes, as an energy management system. For me, I know I don't have an infinite amount of energy, and I can't give my all to everything. So I need to work out how the things that I'm going to give my energy to, and how much of that energy I'm going to give. So that involves boundaries. That involves me deciding no energy goes there, some energy goes there, a lot more energy goes there. These are the relationships, these are the things, these are the things that I might do for other people, the things I'm going to do for myself. These are all the things that I'm going to prioritise. And that also means that these are the things I'm going to say no to. I'm going to say yes to these priority things, and I'm going to have to say no to these things over here. And that's how I like to think of boundaries. You may have a different way of thinking about them, but if you are going to use boundaries effectively to manage your energy, you need to take some action, because there needs to be a saying, actually, no, thank you for the invitation, but I can't make it, or that's not for me, or somebody asks you to do a piece of work and you maybe take a bit of time and go, okay, let me get back to you on that, or a meeting, that time doesn't work for me, or just no, that time doesn't work for me. There doesn't even have to be a sorry, but that is action. That is definitely the sort of action I am talking about here, putting those boundaries in place. More action is where you've put the boundaries in place and then people overstep those boundaries and you have to reinforce them. So, I don't know, you might say, I don't want to eat after 7 p.m, perhaps. Say that is a boundary that you want to, for health reasons, you've decided that's what you want to do. And then somebody might be cooking for you, but they want you to be eating at 7:30 or 8, say. And even though you've told them about that boundary. So more action is you saying, oh, right, thank you for offering to cook, but I need to eat before 7 or by 7 at the latest. So I will prepare something myself. That's a really, I'm trying to think of examples off the top of my head. And there are so many ways of taking action around boundaries and holding that boundary, which is so important. It is so important for your energy. It's so important for you to show and prove to yourself that you are going to hold those boundaries. And that helps the inner part of you who might need to know that you're holding that boundary. It helps them know that you are doing that and feel safe. I mean, there are so many layers to this. There really are. But taking some action is needed. When I think back to my business example that I told you about a moment ago, it came to the point where I had to start putting things into action, because I could have all these ideas of things that might work, but until I tried some things, I wouldn't know do they work for me? Do they work for my clients? What is it that's going to work? It wasn't until I started my first podcast that I worked out how I was going to do it. How did it feel putting my voice out into the world? How was I going to cope with, the obvious imperfections there are in my podcast episodes? I stumble over my words. Sometimes I forget the path I was going down, and I have to come back. Yes, I could have edited all those out. Yes, I could have prepared a script and stuck to that script. But I decided I wanted my podcast episodes to be in the moment. So I don't have a script. Probably obvious to you, but I don't have a script. I very much am in the moment. I trust that what comes up is what needs to come up. And that's what I will talk about. Also, if I stumble over my words, I know that I'm real. You won't be bothered by that. I say a lot. I've not yet discovered the art of thinking quietly. I tend to think out loud when I'm going, But I needed to do that. I needed to work out that that's how it was going to work for me, and try it so that I can get happy, content with the way that these things work for me, rather than trying to be like somebody else. So I needed to take that action, and I did script a few. And then I just quickly realised I sounded like I was reading from a script. And it didn't really work for me. Whereas when I do it like this, I don't always know where it's going, but something always comes out of my mouth. I'm not thinking too far ahead as I'm talking. I suppose I am feeling into, okay, so this is what I'm saying. Where is this taking me? And there's a little bit of that subconscious dialogue going on between the inner core wisdom of me and my head. But it's definitely the inner core wisdom that is feeding the head feeding my brain to make my mouth work and make the sounds, the words come out. And I'm quite comfortable with that now. I know that's not going to work for everybody, but I'm quite comfortable with that now. But I had to work this out for myself, and I did that by taking action. It's like this video here. First of all, my first podcast was audio only. And then I got to the point where I was like, okay, I'm all right with that. I like listening back. Now, that sounds a bit weird. Some people don't listen back to their podcasts. I always did. I wanted to know what was going out. I wanted to hear it to make sure it was okay. And I very soon got used to the sound of my voice. And then I decided to put the videos out on YouTube, so that when Robbie and I started this podcast, we just did it naturally. And I suppose she came with me in the way that I'd been doing it before. And, she has said before on this podcast that doing it with me and me being comfortable with it helped her feel comfortable with it. So the action we take, yes, it's for ourselves, but also there is a ripple effect for other people, and perhaps ripple effects for people we don't even know. I don't know who has listened to any podcast that I've put out and taken something from it, and that's had an effect for them in their life, which has then had a knock-on effect with other people in their life. I'm pretty sure that will have happened. I mean, I don't know how many times, but I'm pretty sure that will have happened. And I don't need to know that. I just put out what feels to me the right thing to do at that time. And that helps me take action by not overthinking it. But if I hadn't started, I wouldn't have worked out what the things that feel good for me. And doing what feels good is kind of the guiding principle of a lot of what Robbie and I do here on this podcast and in our community. And it has really guided us well. And it is also what guided me to come here and do this today, because we've worked out the shed roughly how the next 10 episodes are going to go. This is the one that should be next. Robbie and I were having some scheduling issues. And so I just decided to go ahead and do this. So I've decided to take the action because when I tuned in, it felt good. It felt good. It felt the right thing for me to do this because it feels that this should be the next podcast that goes out. Last week we had Truda on, and what a wonderful episode that was, where Truda was talking about living a courageous life. And for her, courage is about doing things that you don't dare to do. And for me that means, oh gosh, I can't do this. I don't know. I'm doing it, finding a way to do it. I'm all for keeping it simple. I am recording this on my phone. I've just got it on a pile of books. I do have my podcasting microphone plugged into my phone, but that's all I'm doing, recording it. I'm keeping it simple. I'm not having a script. I've got a few ideas that I know of what I want to talk about, but I'm just doing it because this is what feels good. So I'm taking this action, but I'm not pushing myself to do something that doesn't feel right. I'm taking this action today because it feels like the right thing to do, feels like the good thing to do. So I'm not advocating at all, as I said at the beginning of this podcast, for you to just take any action, because that will overstimulate your nervous system, and you will not be in a great place if you are pushing yourself to do something that you don't want to do. But if you know what you don't want to do, that is great, because that is moving towards knowing what you do want to do. It's all information to help you work out what step to take, what action to take next. And in that episode with Truda, she talked about really tapping into her big feelings to help her know what to do, what courageous thing to do, or whether to be courageous in the first place, whether to dig deep and get that courage to do the thing that she doesn't dare to do. And I do think that is quite a good guiding light at times. If you are having a big reaction to something, and it might not necessarily be a big load of excitement of like, whoa, yeah, let's do this, because those can be the easier things to do. It might be oh gosh, this feels really big, too big. I'm not sure I can do this. And maybe that is the time to lean in and just see what's underneath it. And maybe what you are perceiving as nerves may well be excitement. And, can you look at the energy around what that thing is that you want to do, but you don't dare to do? What action can you take towards that thing? And it might be little steps. It might be not something big. It might be taking a little step. And really, if you are taking a little step towards doing something that you really don't dare to do, that's not a little step. That's actually quite a big step and is full of courage. I don't always just think of courage as doing the big thing. Doing the little steps towards the big thing, those are equally courageous steps. So I don't know, if you want to record videos, what is a step that you can take towards doing that? And, it could be any number of steps, and you will be able to work out what those steps are for you. And if you're sitting there thinking, I can't, well, maybe take some time to go inwards and just take some time to listen to that wise inner voice that you have, because that voice will be able to tell you. But it might be something like, well, can you do a practice? Can you do a little video? Don't start yourself off saying I've got to do a 30-minute video, because that's a lot. I mean, I can see now I've been already talking for 19 minutes. When I started this, I didn't know how long this will last. But if you know me, you'll know that I can talk when I get going. But just say to yourself, well, I'll just do a 2-minute video. And see how that feels. You'll be amazed how quick 2 minutes goes. Can you do a 2-minute video? Can you do a 5-minute video? Can you do a 2-minute video and watch it back a few times and get comfortable with that? Nobody else has to see it, but can you get comfortable with seeing yourself on video to then, get to a point where you can do a slightly longer video and put it out somewhere? Maybe on your social media, maybe in your newsletter, maybe, I don't know. Maybe you just want to send it to your friends. Maybe I don't know where you are in your life, what you are looking at and what you are wanting to do. But I know a lot of people don't like being on video. And if you are running your own business, you might be thinking about videos. That's why I chose that. Let's see if I can think of, how can you move towards putting more boundaries in place? I would say try not to start with your family because they can be the hardest place. I would always say that start with yourself, start inside for lots of reasons. And that's the work that I do with a lot of clients. Start inside, work on your solid core so you know who you are, you can feel much more solid inside, and then you can take some of the things you've learned, some of the things you want to put in place out into the world, and that solid part of you inside won't be waved quite so much around, depending on how things go when you try and put boundaries in place with other people. But, boundaries with ourselves are essentially prioritizing your self-care. So is it that going back, not going to eat after 6 p.m. or 7 p.m. maybe, having a set bedtime and making sure that you are in, you get a sleep routine. That's what I meant. So maybe that is how do you wind down at the end of the night, end of the evening, and make sure you're in a good place to fall asleep at a good time. What would that look like? Maybe that's off all devices by 9 o'clock, off the TV by 10 o'clock, in bed, little bit of a read, and light out by 10:30. I don't know, whatever that looks like for you. But can you put that in place and stick to it? And don't try and do it unless you are really going to put the effort in to stick to it. Because if you don't really put that effort in or try and do something that really you're not going to stick to, going ahead anyway can just reinforce any belief that you might have that you don't stick to things. So start really small if that is what is needed. So can it just be as small as, I don't know, I'm going to drink an extra glass of water a day? Or I'm not going to eat my lunch sitting at my desk. I'm going to take at least 15 minutes away from my desk and build that up to more time. And then, hopefully before you know it, you're eating your lunch away from your desk and you're having a little walk at lunchtime as well. Or whatever it is that's going to be meaningful for you. But take those small steps and build on them rather than going for the big thing and it not working. And I suppose this ties in, as I'm talking, this ties in with the way, that we talked about goal setting for HSPs back 2 episodes ago. Look at how you are going to build up to a bigger goal and set those small steps in place, because it's much more manageable. So as HSPs, we really have to manage our energy and our nervous system response to what we're doing. So small incremental steps are going to be easier for you to manage, easier for you to stick to, easier overall for you to take on board, and they will build up to where you want to be. And you will get there. Whereas if you try and rush straight to the end and you are overwhelmed and whatever else you might be feeling, there is more of a chance of it not working. So yes, take action, but take action in manageable steps. Manageable for you, not anybody else. Don't look at what other people are doing. Don't look at and compare yourself. because you are you, I am me, all the other people in the world are themselves, and we will all have different capacity for different things, different abilities, different ways of doing things. And, gosh, if nothing else, I would love more people to be able to work out what works for them and stick to that, because there is so much more joy in that for us. There really is. So you work out, there is something you want to do, something you want to achieve, something you want to, a place, either a metaphorical place or an actual place you want to get to. How are you going to do that? For me, I really want to go on a trip to see the Northern Lights. I've tried twice to see the Northern Lights so far, and they've not appeared. And I love they're so mysterious, because if they were easy to see, it wouldn't be quite so magic, would it? So I am working out the next plan, my next trip, and how I'm going to do that. And am I going on my own, or am I going with other people and getting information? And I'm gathering all sorts of information and thinking about things, but in small steps, which will get me to later this year booking that trip, and probably this time next year going on that trip. So that is the plan. But I'm just taking little steps every time to work out how to do it, to gather information, because otherwise it becomes a really big thing. And I will get overwhelmed with too much information, too much to do. And if I have too many things that are unknown and I can't work out what to do, I will have a tendency to go, right, okay, and walk away from the whole thing. And I've had to learn that over the years. And now when things are really important, I'm learning. It's still a work in progress, but I am learning to step back a bit and go, okay, what are the steps that I need to take to get me there? Right, yeah. So I think that's it for this episode. It was really just to highlight the need to take action as well as do all the learning. And then everything else I've said around taking that action, how to take it, when to take it. And I hope this has been useful. So that's going to be it for this episode. And Robbie and I will be back as usual very soon. So for now, it's bye from me.
Thanks for listening to HSP Connection. If you've enjoyed listening, we'd love you to hit the follow or subscribe button, as this helps other people find us. And it also means you won't miss an episode.
Also, we'd really appreciate it if you could rate the podcast and share it with anyone you think might be interested. If you listen on Apple Podcasts, you can also leave us a review.
To get in touch with us, you can email us at hspconnectionpodcast@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you with your thoughts and comments on the episodes, as well as suggestions for future topics and guests.
We are both HSP coaches and speakers. And to find out more about Robbie, go to RobbieLeigh, LEIGH.com.
And to find out more about Philippa, go to boldhsp.com. See you next time.